include Make Believe, Print the Legend. He's done the double whammy. He was here at Sundance last year with his film Finders Keepers. He's back 12 months later with Gleason. Ladies and gentlemen, Clay Tweel.
Say thank you all so much for coming. We're very excited to share the film with you. And I want to thank Sundance for having us back. You know, David, your whole staff, Cooper, Trevor, it really is an honor to be here, and we're very, very thankful to share this movie with what we consider to be the best audiences in the world. So, stick around afterwards. We're going to have a Q&A, and we'll see you then. Thanks.
I just want to remind everybody that Gleason is playing in our U.S. documentary competition, which means it's eligible for the Audience Award, so please don't forget to vote. And
so much. This movie, as you can tell, was a very incredibly personal, intimate, and intense process. And this movie could not have happened without a whole village of people. And so, if you will bear with me, I want to call a bunch of people down, and then we can give them applause once they get up here. So, I'm going to run through this list of names. Producers Seth Gordon, Kimmy Culp, come down. Producers Scott McGee, Mary Roller. Executive producers Mark Shapiro, Will Stager, and Paul Varisco. Our DPs, Simon Small and David Lee. Co-producers Shannon Riggs. Composers Dan Romer, Saul McWilliams, and co-editor Brian Palmer. Thank you all. So, and most importantly, this movie would not have happened without the courage and bravery of two very special people. I'd like you to join me in welcoming Michelle Varisco and Steve Gleason. All right.
okay. So how this is going to work is I'm going to ask a couple of questions up front, first of Clay, and then a couple of questions for Steve. And then after that, we will open it up to a Q&A. We're going to ask that if two people will ask a question of Steve, it'll take a little time for him to respond, so we'll get those questions up front, and then they'll be answered later on at the end, and we'll make it all work. So And and also, yeah, please, folks, no flash photography. That's really important here, okay? Thank you very much. Okay, Clay, first of all, I'm really curious as to like how you first found out about Steve's story and how this film all came together.
Sure, I'll give my part first and then jump back a little bit. I actually was here at Sundance 2 years ago, crashing on Seth's couch for the mid-premiere. My agent sent me this 5-minute teaser trailer that Ty and David, where are you guys, put together. And it just blew me away. And I felt then like this story is so important and I really want to be a part of it. And so I, shortly after the festival, flew down and met with Steve and Michelle, and that started kind of our journey. And Seth was there too, and that was kind of like our entryway into this world. But where's Kimmy at? You can tell about the beginning of the process.
Hi. So the beginning, Ty and David, who Clay just mentioned, Ty and David, as you can see, Steve began recording himself as he felt his body deteriorating, and eventually began recording life lessons for Little Rivers. But when he could no longer film himself, Ty and David, two young aspiring filmmakers, began to film him and Michelle and Rivers. And not only did they begin to film him, but they traveled with them and lived with them, and actually eventually became caretakers for Steve as well. So I think that the intimacy and rawness that you see in the footage, I think clearly that there is a level of trust and love with them behind the camera and you guys in front of it that's evident. So. So basically they had created this incredible body of footage and story that my background is in producing and journalism, and I had never been involved in an independent film, but we certainly knew that there was an extraordinary story to tell. So basically a group of Steve and Michelle's friends, most of whom have nothing to do with the entertainment industry, Scott, a football player, Tom in finance, Tom is a lawyer, and we started a production company, Dear Rivers Production, to help share their story, and we met Clay and Seth and hired them as the director and producer, and as you can see, they knocked it out of the park.
Okay, this question is for you, Steve. Obviously, lots of really sucky things happen when you get a degenerative disease like ALS, but I'm wondering what's the most positive thing that's come through from all of this for you?
Beyond the absolute beauty that is our son Rivers, without a doubt, the most positive development during this process has been the commitment, support, and love we've received from the friends. To have people like Ty and David, who filmed the majority of the footage you just saw, and people like Scott, Fujita, and Kimiko, who were the driving force behind making this film. There are these No, in all seriousness, my focus for what is next in life revolves around trying to be the best father and husband that I can possibly be. Really, the initial impulse to pass myself on to our son Rivers is as strong as ever. I still write 10 journals every month. And now that Rivers is older, we're able to really connect to each other. I'm teaching him to spell on my keyboard, and we have legitimate conversation. I plan to continue to try and teach how to be a good man.
Okay, so now it's your turn to ask questions of Steve. I'm sorry, raise your hand if you have any, and it's a really big room, so try to speak as loudly as possible. Sure, this gentleman here.
Thank you guys so much. We're actually fellow New Orleans and hugely inspired by your story. We've been following you all this time. And apologies, Michelle, this is a mind fuck for you. Thank you and congratulations. My question is about Machu Picchu. I noticed a little bit at the end, and
Who's that?
And your dad. I was just wondering why that particular story, to the public, it seemed like that was such a milestone and an inspiration to be able to finally get to the top of Machu Picchu. And I'm just wondering why that was not more of a focal point in the film.
Okay, his question was about the bit about Machu Picchu and why it wasn't more of a focal point in the story.
I think Clay.
I can take that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the Machu Picchu piece was also very well covered in the NFL network piece that was done on Steve. And so I feel like part of our collective goal here was to try to tell new sides of the story, new sides of the family that have yet to be seen. And while that story is amazing. And,
Agreed.
And so we felt like at that point in the story, we're also kind of, it's a degenerative disease. You're a little bit locked into the chronology of how things happen. And at that point in the story, we didn't know whether the cost benefit of having it in was going to keep the narrative pushing forward. So, trust me, there was 1,300 hours of footage. There is a lot of amazing stuff that didn't make it.
So, you have a question for Steve? Yes. Okay.
Thank you for sharing your story. We saw a lot of Michelle's father. We saw a lot of your father. Saw
Sure.
your mother at the beginning, and I was wondering if it was intentional she wasn't included more or chose not to.
Okay. The question was about Steve's mother. Was it intentional that we saw a lot of fathers in the movie? Was it intentional that she wasn't included as much? And Steve can prepare that answer, and we
Again, probably Clay.
Okay.
I'll be real quick. So in coming up with a kind of filtering system to how to whittle down that much footage, we really had to kind of zero in on what was key. And for us, that was the father-son story and the story between Michelle and Steve. So it's room.
So clearly what we're getting here, if your question is about, choices about the movie, those are going to go to Clay. So if you have something to ask Steve about his experience, that would be for him, sure.
About the experience, but who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Steve, who's going to win the Super Bowl? That's your question. And you can...
Drew.
And this gentleman right here.
Drew can answer.
Interaction with all these other ALS people, because I think it's really important. Your story is a good one, but it's a big area, and I would expect that you've learned things that you can share with us.
Okay.
Say again.
Did you? The gentleman's question was we got your experience with all these other ALS patients in the film, which is a very big thing. And what can you talk a little bit more about that and what it means to you?
So it's going to take a while to take that one.
Yeah. So that's one that we'll get back to later, and we'll do one more for Steve to answer if anyone wants to. Sure, this lady right here.
Last year, you took in Finders Keepers, a story that was so outwardly lighthearted, and managed to get underneath of the story that was actually, much more deeper. And this was an important view of the story that was so outwardly devastating and emotional, and was important to concentrate the lightheartedness and the
So this is a question for Clay. You can recap that if you would.
Sure. So the question was about last year. The film we had, Finders Keepers, was outwardly very funny, and then there was touching moments to it, and this one is different. And so so kind of emotional from the get-go. I would say that the films are kind of inverses of each other in that way, but we were trying to do the same thing with each of them, is to be able to show the kind of, as Steve said, the polarities, the juxtapositions of life, and the kind of roller coaster that it takes you on. So whether it's a funny story, we're going to find some sort of deeper layers of you know, kind of emotion behind that, and then emotional stuff. On top of all that, Michelle is hilarious. Blair.
Answering your question, Finders Keepers took 8 years to make. It was a silly topic that we tried to get underneath, but we really wanted to do a film that had a larger purpose. And the goal here was always to follow through on Steve's vision, which was to educate the world about ALS, because like some camp, always trying to make something that could help amplify that story. And it's just, I just want to say it's unbelievable that these guys allowed the world to see this vulnerable, fascinating, very real roller coaster that they've been through, because I think it's a gift, really, to everybody.
We have time for basically one more question, and then to hear the answer to Steve's question. So our final question will be this gentleman here. And
just want to make one comment and then ask a question. I think you haven't just made a film about ALS. I think you made a wonderful love story. You can really see the love between these people. And I really thought it was amazing, touching. But you've also made a wonderful film about father and son. And I think anything that the son, I mean, really, it's just tremendously moving. But I wanted to ask you to allow these people into here, when all of this is going on anyway, to allow these people into your life to do this. Why did you make that decision? What were the factors you considered when you decided?
did you all hear everything he said in the back? Okay, first of all, he mentioned, he gave compliments about the movie, that it's not just a film about ALS, it's a love story. Lots of these people, and it's an amazing movie about relationships between fathers and sons. And then his question was for Michelle, which I can't believe, because I was gonna steal the final question and ask Michelle the exact same question you just asked her. And I thought, no, I can't do that. I have to let the audience have the question. So he asked it, which is, I mean, being in this situation, it's tough enough, but letting all these movie people into your life on top of it all is a double whammy. And what was it like for you, and how did you get through it all?
The decision to do it, I don't even think that I decided to do it. I think Steve decided to do his journals, and then Ty came around 3 days before I was born. Rivers was born, and then he just started living with us and filming us, and became another caretaker, and I just wanted people to help me. So with the camera, that was fine. I think I was like, you can film me, I just want some help. And then David came around, and he's another person to help, and they became like my brothers. Blair was already there. And so the whole film part, I don't even think that I thought about, and it was just kind of a part of our life. This whole thing came later, and I kind of was clocked out by then and let it happen. But as it started, it happened kind of organically.
Awesome. Okay, and but before we get to Steve's answer to the last thing, I just want to mention to everyone that the Team Gleason Foundation is going to be handing out bracelets after the show, so make sure you get one. Okay, the question for Steve was about his relationship with other people with ALS, and now he's going to let us know what he has to say about that.
In terms of ALS, I think it was important to us to show the audience the true realities of ALS. We know that every ALS family goes through these moments, so it was important that it was well represented. And I think that we as a group were able to do that.
Okay, that's it. Thank you all so much for coming out.